Unlimited Power, a book written by Anthony Robbins, or Tony Robbins. It's a book written in 1986. It's essentially about communication skills within yourself, but also communication skills with the world, and making sure that you have congruence within yourself as you communicate in those different areas. It's kind of hard to summarize the book in just a couple of sentences, but I'll go through each chapter and tell you what I got from each chapter. The book is broken into 3 sections, and each section has about 10 chapters or so inside of it. Chapter 1, The Commodity of Kings. Chapter 1 points out that information is everywhere, and effectively everyone has that information. The difference is who's taking the action using that information. When we look at people who are very successful, they're usually the ones who have used the information that they've gathered, compared to the people who don't use that information. Information is gathered and used by communicating, and it's communicating with yourself and communicating with the external world. It's an incredibly important skill. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we internalize the world, will affect how we act or respond to those stimulus. Taking an action requires setting a goal, getting quality feedback, and using the feedback to adjust the path as you navigate towards the goal. So it's like navigating with a compass, and you're setting up a map, and you're continually making sure you're moving towards a destination. The remainder of the chapter gave a brief introduction for what the subsequent chapters will cover. And so some actions to take from this chapter is to set some goals, search out feedback from various sources, hold on to those that are quality, and continually adjust your course as you go. Chapter 2, The Difference That Makes the Difference. Our perceptions of events that happen to us in our lives is important because it helps or hinders us in setting up for the next actions we will take. Often success comes not from the resources that someone has, but from what they do with the resources that they have. Our internal perceptions are commonly known as beliefs and values, and this is where modelling other people's behaviour comes in handy. It can be difficult to self-evaluate entirely because we have self-perceptions that may be wrong. However, it may be easier to evaluate the successful and emulate their strategies. Now, modelling isn't an instant cure. It can take time to correctly model complex strategies. To become a good modeler, you need to be a good analyst of excellent people. 3 things to sort out to reach excellence. The belief system. You need to analyse a person's belief system, and you need to be able to believe what they believe as well. If you don't believe it, you won't be able to use their strategy. What is their mental syntax? How are their thoughts organised? What words do they use when they discuss ideas? And the last is the physiology of a person. You want to model how a person stands and their posture because it'll give you an idea of what they are thinking and how they are feeling. And this will affect the way that they think. So you want to model their posture, facial expressions and movement. There will be a later chapter on physiology. You can take the working ideas of an excellent person's strategy and duplicate it in your area because you're going to be a different person. You want to read about the people you want to model, understand their life story, and especially read things that they wrote. Be prepared to change strategies. Model things explicitly. And understand what you are modelling. Don't just accept ideas unchecked. Be observant. So actions to take from this chapter are learn from excellent models, read about them, watch them, and study them. Chapter 3, The Power of State. Quote, the kind of behaviour people produce is the result of the state they are in. How they specifically respond out of that state is based on their models of the world. Change your state to change your behaviour and perspective on matters. We want to be in a state that will help us act in ways that are positive for us. Our state depends on our current mental and physiological condition. The mental states that we often use are modelled after people close to us when we grow up. If your parents assumed a certain mental state according to an event, for example, if someone's getting sick, or when things don't go right for them, or when things go well, it is likely you have taken on those mental states when the same things happen to you. The world seems like a different place when you are sick to when you are feeling healthy, and this is an example of different states, or states of mind. Since we have a subjective view of the world, it may be best to set up a view that would best serve positive actions rather than enable negative actions. We want to be in a resourceful state of mind, not an unresourceful state. One writer puts the words differently. Are we working from an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset? We want the best mindset in order to work the most effectively. It's not about doing the impossible, it's about being in the most effective state you can be. You can't change the world, but you can change how you will act, and so you want to be in the right state of mind. Chapter 4. The Birth of Excellence. Belief. Fostering belief is very important, and our beliefs can change according to different environments, events that occur during our lives, while we're gathering knowledge or using knowledge, and using the past to inform the present and to envision the future. So our belief structures are very important. Our beliefs feed into our potential and let us see what we can do with stuff. That is to say, our belief feeds our potential and helps us see what resources we have that we can use. So our potential feeds our actions. Our actions feed our results. Those results feed into our belief and attitude system again, which again feeds into more potential. So belief structures are very important. Chapter 5. The 7 Lies of Success. Successful people ensure that they learn from their setbacks, take responsibility, give things a go even if they don't know everything, value people with their actions, enjoy their work, and commit to their projects. I think I squeezed another one of those 7 lies into another one. Chapter 7, Mastering Your Mind and How to Run Your Brain. Chapter 7 and 8 essentially bleed into the same thing for me, so I'll go over both of them at the same time. Take note of what people say and how they describe things, because this will help you understand the states that are needed to emulate them. That is to say, to emulate the person. There are different words that come from different types of views. There are the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic words. The visual words are commonly things like see, or I think, or if someone speaks in visual metaphors, or if their eyes are looking upwards. Auditory words or phrases are like sounds right, or things just clicked, or I'm hearing you. If the person speaking has their eyes looking to the sides, they're likely tapping into the auditory state of mind. And the last is kinesthetic. Words like grasping, heavy, or reaching for an answer, or I feel. And if their eyes are looking downwards, or even towards their body, it's likely that they're thinking in a kinesthetic state of mind. Now this all helps us start to get a grip on how people set up their strategies, or what kind of state of mind that they're using. So someone may go through several states or several different types of mind states to reach an overall strategy. So several states equal an overall strategy. Understanding how to get someone's strategy is very important. Strategies are essentially combinations of these visual, auditory, and kinesthetic states of mind, and these are combined with internal, external, digital, and constructed. Digital is abstract thinking, and constructed is ideas that they've made up in their mind. Now you could combine these two things combined, so you could have visual and internal, which is they're picturing something in their head, or maybe it's visual external, where they saw a picture or maybe an advertisement to get them, and that's a certain state. And then you have states that run off those states. For example, if someone says something and that causes them to feel which is kinesthetic, feel stronger, and so then they were able to take an action. So the feeling of strength could be kinesthetic internal, and then they're taking an action or moving could be kinesthetic external, because they're doing something with their body rather than just feeling it inside. So this is called a strategy. We want to elicit it so that we can follow the same steps as the person that we're modelling, or in order to effectively get that person into a final desired state, like a state of feeling loved or motivated. To elicit their strategy, you need to ask the person to recall an event where they were in that state, in the final state. And then you need to ask them the steps. What kind of steps? Did they feel something? Did they hear something that put them into a certain state? And how did it lead them up to the final strategy? And usually these amounts of states are about 3 to 5, but they can sometimes be a bit longer. Chapter 9, Physiology, the Avenue of Excellence. This chapter is pretty much your Jordan Peterson stand up straight with your shoulders back. Our physiology, our postures, facial expressions, breathing, and tone of voice, and cadence of voice can all send feedback into our minds. If we can change the way we carry ourselves, we can change our moods and the way we think. We can also use this technique if we want to find out what other people are thinking or feeling. So when you're modelling someone else and how they're moving, or and you mirror them, you can get an idea of how they're feeling or what they're thinking as well. So some actions from this chapter is to observe the postures other people take. You want to be very careful when you're observing, and take note of the context in which they are taking that posture or making those facial expressions. And see if you can modify your own posture to fit the physiology that you want to have. Chapter 10, Energy, the Fuel of Excellence. This chapter I don't particularly like. Some of it I question in terms of its scientific value. However, I'll give you the summary. He goes over breathing, so you want to work on proper deep breathing because it enhances the lymphatic system's abilities. And you want to learn breathing techniques. One breathing technique he says is to do a ratio of 1 count breathing in, 4 counts holding, and 2 counts breathing out. Or you could just do aerobic exercise to help with breathing well and doing it every day. He recommends eating water-rich foods, which are essentially just fruits and vegetables. And he goes into combining foods appropriately, and things like not eating... you can eat non-starchy vegetables with anything else. He recommends not mixing carbs, proteins, or fats together or in any pairing. He says don't mix liquids with a meal or immediately after. And he says that fruit can be eaten by itself at any time. He recommends controlled consumption of food, to eat less often and eat less amounts, and only eat what you really need. So don't overeat. And he also recommends low protein consumption. Now we move on to section 2, the ultimate success formula. Chapter 11, limitation disengage. What do you want? This chapter is on how to make goals, really specific goals. You want to state your outcome in positive terms, which is something that you want. You don't want a goal that's something that you don't want. You want to be very specific. How will you know you've attained your goal? Think of things that you will see, smell, feel, taste, and hear when you've reached that goal. You want to evaluate your goal. Does the goal entirely depend on you? You don't want it to have to depend on other people. Does it benefit your community? You want to think about what do you have, what will you do, what will you be, and what will you share when you reach the goal. And you want to use SMART goals as well. That's SMART goals. That you can look that up on Wikipedia. Have a timeline, so set a deadline to aim at, and think about how long the goal will possibly take you to reach. Some will be years, some will be weeks, some will be months. Choose the goals that are most valuable to you this year. Think about what the limitations are that are stopping you from getting it right now, and break the goal into actionable steps. Either start at the end, the destination of where you're going to be, and work backwards in steps, or do it the other way around. Where are you now, and how many steps, or what kind of steps would take you to this end goal? Find your models. Who has taken a similar path or had a similar goal that you want to take, and model them. What daily effect would your goal have? So what daily things do you need to do to reach the goal? And that can even be just small things that you do every day to make sure that you're moving towards that goal. And last, make sure you set up your surroundings to support your goals. Maybe you need to sort out your room, maybe you need to sort out your house. What are the kind of things that you need in your surroundings to take you from where you are now to your goal? Chapter 12, The Power of Precision. You want to learn words, and you want to learn what they mean. You want to work on your vocabulary. You want to ask specific questions. Don't be vague with your questions. You want to make sure you ask specific persons, because not everyone can or will help you with the questions that you have. You want to make sure you create value for the person that you're asking help from. Ask with focused, congruent belief. You need to make sure you're in a state in which you're the most confident for what you're asking for. And sometimes you want to ask until you get what you want. It may take more than one time to ask. Maybe you need to ask in a different way or at a different time when the person is in a different state. This chapter also covers making sure you interrupt the habit of imprecise traps. Things like thinking about whenever you come across a problem, you may think you have too much or too many or maybe something's too expensive, and you want to think compared to what. You want to know who or what specifically is involved in certain things or events or solutions or problems. You want to know how specifically you can navigate the solution or problem. You want to avoid or think about whenever someone uses the word should, shouldn't, must or can't. Because what would happen if you did? What kind of causes or prevention techniques are there in this case? And then the last thing is thinking about universals. When people use the word, or if you use the words all, every, never or always, these are generalizations or universals, and they are not usually correct, and you want to think about that when you use those words. And last but not least, questions that have the word how are usually better than the questions with the word why, because how questions lead to active thinking rather than passive thinking. Chapter 13, The Magic of Rapport. Rapport is about being in tune with another person. We do this by having things in common. This commonality starts with physiology, before we're even talking about hobbies and interests. Mirroring people is a helpful tool. Breathing, posture, speech patterns, hand movements. And you want to pay close attention to the person that you're speaking to and mirror their physiology. It'll help you understand what they are thinking and what they're feeling. It'll help with your communication. To mirror well, you need keen observation and personal flexibility. Remember back to the strategies and the words the other person uses. Are they using visual, auditory, or kinesthetic words? You might want to make a list of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic words so that you can watch out for them when people are speaking and using them, and it will give you an idea of what that person is thinking. If you're dealing with a group of people, however, it's more important to play on all three types of strategies while remaining congruent or cohesive or coherent within yourself, because then you'll be able to reach those three different types of people in the crowd of people or the group of people that you're speaking to. Whenever you're speaking to one person or when you're going one-on-one, you want to mirror them first, because they'll help you get to in pace with them. It'll help you understand what they're thinking, and then later on, once you feel that you and them are at the same pace, then you can lead or direct them towards another state, and you can shift your physiology, and they should be able to follow or reciprocate. Chapter 14, Distinctions of Excellence, Meta-programs. These meta-programs are, I believe, spectrums usually. They are different ways of seeing the world, and it can help you again connect with people that you're talking to so that you can best speak in their language or communicate with them. One of the meta programs is moving towards or away. So some people will act or think in terms of moving towards a goal, where some people will be thinking more about moving away from something that's negative. Something to keep in mind. Another is, does the person think more in external frames of reference, or how people see them, or do they think more of internal frames of reference, or what they think of themselves? The third meta program spectrum is, do they sort by self or by sorting by others? Do they actively search out helping others out or thinking about other people, or do they sort by self and think of more about themselves and trying to meet their own needs? The fourth is matches or mismatches, that is to say looking for similarities or differences. It can also kind of be interpreted as optimistic people or pessimistic people. The fifth is their convincing meta program, which is to say, does that kind of person need lots of small convincing acts over a long period of time to keep that person convinced of you? Or is that person okay with just large drops of convincing or interaction in order to keep the relationship healthy? The sixth is possibility versus necessity. Is the person more likely to think about what could be, what is the possibility, what is needed now, what is necessity? And the last is their working style. Are they more of like a lone wolf, or are they a group worker, or are they in between? And of course all of these meta programs are what I believe are on spectrums, and different people will use different meta programs depending on what context that they're in. Chapter 15, How to Handle Resistance and Solve Problems. You want to be able to communicate flexibly. You want to mirror the person you're working with. You want to see, hear, and feel the state that they're in. Work with that state to work towards a win-win goal. Work towards an agreement frame. So you want to end up using the words like I appreciate and, or you could say I respect and, or you could say I agree and. Now you don't have to agree with what they said. So you don't want to change your position for no reason, otherwise you'll be seen as dishonest. But maybe agree with their feelings or how they sound or their vision. Agree with something that they're passionate about, and make it genuine. Now, the more in tune you are with them and with their state, you'll be mirroring them, and while you're doing this, you will actually be able to agree with them in certain things and in certain frames. So that's why it's important to mirror people very well, because it'll give you a really good idea of where are they coming from, how can I best work for them and them work for me, and you can both come together in terms of an agreement frame or a win-win situation. Keep in mind that it's easier to get someone to do something that they want to do rather than what they don't want to do. You want to avoid the words but and however. In some cases, the person can be in a very strange state and you want to break the pattern. That sometimes requires you to put them suddenly off guard by giving an abrupt signal to throw them off. Reframing. Chapter 16, Reframing, the Power of Perspective. Our past experiences will give us a certain outlook on life. It is valuable to think over your life and find events that could have given you a poor frame for going forward. Reframe past events into positive ones so you can move forward. Use reframe methods to help. Some frames may be a truth and will put you into a certain state. It would be best if it can put you into a resourceful state rather than unresourceful. And keep this in mind, reframing is done by us, but it is also done to us by corporations, social media, and institutions. Chapter 17, Anchoring Yourself to Success. Anchors are feelings, sounds, visuals that put us into a desired state. Advertisers use anchoring all the time. We want to use this tool to put ourselves and others into a predetermined state. When creating an anchor, you want to generate first a high intensity state. You want to use as many submodalities as possible. A submodality is a specific type of experience or feeling, or maybe it's something you see. It could be visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. You want as many as possible that link to this high intensity state. And the state could be a state that you feel really confident. You want to think of an event that made you feel really confident. You want to think about what were the visual signals that you were getting that put you into that confident state, but also the auditory and the kinesthetic as well. How were you feeling? Maybe even the smells. Maybe it was a certain place. Think about all those things to put yourself into a high intensity state. Now you want to time your anchor. The anchor could be another signal. It could be a click. It could be maybe you're putting your fingers in a certain way or making a certain fist. Maybe you make a fist like this. And you want to time the anchor for the peak feeling or peak intensity of the state. And then make the anchor unique and specific. So you want to make sure it's a really specific type of fist that you can replicate every single time correctly. Maybe it's a fist like this. It could be a sound. It could be a bell. It could be a click. Now that you've developed an anchor, you need to test it. So break your state by either just waiting for some time or breaking on purpose, and then trigger the anchor by using it in an environment. Actions to take from this chapter are: start building anchors and use them in specific situations to make them stronger. Section 3, Leadership, the Challenge of Excellence. Chapter 18, Value Hierarchies, the Ultimate Judgment of Success. Working out your value hierarchy and those of others is important in understanding behavior and working in a way that is congruous and enjoyable. Ask what is most valuable for certain contexts, such as a work environment, relationships, and your hobbies. You can pit different categories against each other to work out which one is higher up. Ask specific questions to break categories down into subcategories. Sometimes categories are ambiguous and need to be defined better. For example, the word love can mean different things. Full-scale elicitations can't be possible because life is too short. Maybe just focus on the most important value for people important to you. Value hierarchies can also change over time. At times, values within a person can clash. This can cause inner conflicts. Using strategies from earlier chapters, as well as meta-programs, and eliciting our values can help us construct healthy bridges between values to make them congruous. Be careful in changing value hierarchies. It can have unforeseen consequences. Societies as a whole have values as well, and so it's wise to investigate what those values are. Chapter 19, The 5 Keys to Wealth and Happiness. You must learn to handle frustration. Decide the path which you'll be happy to be frustrated in. You must learn how to handle rejection. It's part of progress. Use the no as an anchor for a positive state, for example. You must learn to handle financial pressure. Live on 80%, donate 10%, and invest or save 10%. You don't need money for everything. Sometimes you just need to ask. You must learn how to handle complacency. Be careful of comfort. Learn to judge yourself by your goals instead of what your peers seem to be doing. You may be ahead of your peers, but that may not mean much if your peers are not your models. Avoid gossip. It exists in magazines, social media, TV, and at the water cooler. Don't major in the minors, and always give more than you expect to receive. Chapter 20. Trend Creation, the Power of Persuasion. The amount of stimuli we receive each day is similar to the past. The difference now is the intent and reach of that stimuli. Stimuli such as things we watch in the media and what we get from the internet. We want to be persuasive people. Ways to do this is to use visual, audio, kinesthetic signals to groups of people. It is said power is the ability to communicate and to persuade. Human problems are generated by human behaviors, which are caused by the states they are in. If we can harness human behavior, we can generate solutions. Chapter 21. Living Excellence, the Human Challenge. This is a concluding chapter that points out that we are all in a global community and contribute to that community. The more we work out of a resourceful state, the better our communities will be. I found Unlimited Power to be a very interesting book to read. Anthony Robbins isn't a registered psychologist, but the information that he's collected over his years of experience have proven to be helpful in many instances, and in some cases could be used for harm. But I find that his books and the way that he writes is very reachable, very, very easy to read, and very inspiring. Whenever I've read one of his books, I find that I get to the end of them and I feel inspired and motivated to continue with my goals and to push further. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Thank you for listening.